Hola, animigos, and welcome to Keyframers, the animated collaborative coding live stream where we bring imaginative user interfaces to life. I'm your host, Stephen Shaw, and I'm partially invisible today. Don't worry about it. Yeah, it's okay.
Great choice in attire. Anyway, I am David Khourshid, and I am fully visible.
Yes, and I greatly appreciate that. It's better than our ghosting episodes that we've had in the past.
Yeah, you should get one of these cool CodePen t-shirts.
Oh,
don't know where you can find them, but yeah.
I'm sure creative folks can find places for them. But anyway, we are coding compadres, animation amigos, Boolean buddies, and keyframe companions.
Yeah, so today we're going to be continuing our 7 GUIs saga today. 7 GUIs, however we want to pronounce it. We are sailing the 7 GUIs. And we are doing challenge number 4, if you wants to pull that up. It's the timer challenge.
So this is the 7 GUI tasks that we started on last week. Last week we built out a counter. Amazing. We built a temperature converter that works really well. We built a flight booker. This one was a beast, but it worked. And we're doing this all with XState and state machines to kind of just showcase how you can use state machines in controlling UI and eventually kind of animation and things like that as well. So today's task, continuing down the line, is the timer.
Right, so task is to build a frame containing a gauge, so like a little progress bar for the elapsed time, a label which shows the elapsed time, okay, a slider which shows the duration, and a button to reset. So notably, there's no play or pause functionality on here. You just have a duration. And so they have a demo somewhere here, but basically, if the time goes past the elapsed time, you could change the duration and the timer will keep going. And I believe that this is actually in the description.
Yeah,
over there.
It's a bit terse to read, so we'll try and kind of implement these things one at a time. But yeah, it's interesting. So
this is definitely non-trivial. It says it deals with concurrency, competing user signal interactions. And by competing, it means there's user input and there's also input from the actual time values. So we'll have to model that out in terms of ticks, I'm thinking, which we've done in many keyframers episodes. So now we're just bringing those concepts to state machines.
So let's dive in here. We just kind of have our template from last time. We're kind of using this classic GUI set up, and we already have XState imported with our timer machine and timer service just kind of ready to go. We go over a lot of these concepts and things in the last episode. I've got that linked below if you want to check that out after you're done watching this, of course. But that'll just kind of be a nice little starter for us. So I imagine we'll need some context here.
Yeah, so I'm doing some of this from muscle memory just because I built like I actually taught a couple React workshops where we built the Android timer using XState and React. So I know that we need 3 things in context, and you could surmise these things without prior knowledge or like doing it before, but we need to keep track of the elapsed time. So it starts at 0. We need to keep track of the duration, so the total duration we have. Now, let me see what defaults they have, or maybe they don't have a default. So I'm just going to put like 5 seconds or so. So duration.
Really how you spell elapsed? That just does not feel right.
Yeah, no, it's a mixed match of consonants, I guess, and also interval. You have me second guessing myself. Did I spell it wrong?
No, anyway.
Yeah, so this interval is going to be like how much we increase elapsed by on every tick. And now the tick, or actually, wait, what is it? It's yeah, it's how much we are increasing something by. It's how much we're increasing the interval by. So 0.1. So basically every tick we're increasing elapsed. So it goes 0.1, 0.2, 0.3, et cetera, until it reaches the duration. Now, already over there, we see that Shaw has progress, Shaw has elapsed. So I'm going to grab those. Const L progress equals documents.query selector progress. And
duration. I'll probably move
elapsed.
that to some kind of input there. So input ID equals duration. And
you're moving it to an input?
Yeah, because for that it'll need some kind of interface for updating that.
Right. So we could just say L duration.
Range.
Oh, yeah, that's a range. That makes sense. Okay, so L elapsed dots text contents. I always forget whether to use text contents or inner HTML or whatever else there is. But anyway, we're going to make this states.context elapsed seconds.
And will that be stored in seconds, or will we be using milliseconds? Or
no, we'll store in seconds just for now. Yeah. And then so duration. Oh yeah, so L duration dot value equals state.context dot duration.
Yes.
Cool. And yeah, you know what? We'll just go from there.
Yeah, that'll be a good starting point for us.
All right, so thinking about the behavior of this, we know that first of all, in this challenge, it immediately starts going off. So when you launch this, time is already elapsing, and time is going to elapse until elapsed is equal to or greater than the duration, greater than, you want to account for, things being off by a decimal. I've been bitten a lot of times by saying like, all right, if elapsed is exactly equal to duration, then stop. But then adding a decimal is actually making it 0.0001 instead of the actual number. So it's like, oh no, I'm not equal, so I'm going to keep going. And that's bad. So yeah. So we want to have basically two states. We want to have a running state and we want to have a paused state, because again, when elapsed passes duration, it should be paused until you change the actual duration and play around with that. Or if you click reset, then you want that too. So initial, we're going to say running because it's going to be what we're doing first.
So we need L duration. We don't have that yet. I'll get that going.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we are going to say, all right, so let's just say on tick. So we're going to have our tick, and how that tick event is coming in, we don't need to worry about right now, just because that gets into more advanced XState. But one of the good things about state charts is you could sort of model this out without getting into the advanced parts just yet. So you could sort of just fake it pretty easily. I'll show you how that works. Lapsed context. Okay. So can we have, actually, I was going to say, can you make a tick button so that we could test this? But I'm going to set interval instead. So it's going to be just a little bit easier. Timer service dot send. Let's do this every dot send tick. And so that's going to happen. Okay, it's doing stuff. We got, remember the funky decimal thing I was talking about? Yeah, so I think we could do .to fixed two just to, you know,
Non.
make it not do that. And then there we go. Okay, so this tick is going to just keep happening, you know, until, well, it's going to keep happening forever, but we want to make it only happen up until the duration. And over here, you set the duration to 20. So we want it to not go past 20. And so the way that we would do this is, first of all, think about how you would express it in plain English. So in plain English, you want the timer to always go to some sort of paused mode when the elapsed is greater than or equal to the duration. Now you take that and you translate that directly. So you say always go to paused, which we don't have yet, so I have to make it. I'm just going to put it up here. Always go to paused on the condition that context.elapsed is greater than or equal to context.duration. So let's test this out. See, so hopefully it doesn't go past what, 20? Is that what you said too?
We can lower that.
Yeah.
Testing.
Maybe 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
Still takes a while.
Yeah.
Maybe 5.
Sure. 4.
4. There we go. All right.
Riveting stuff. Look at this animation.
3.
Hey,
4.
it stopped.
Okay.
That's great.
So here's the thing. Right now, there's a set interval at the bottom, and it's sending a tick every 10th of a second. In fact, it's still sending ticks right now.
Yeah.
The machine, though, is just completely ignoring those events. Why? Because in the pause state, it's like, hey, I don't handle that event, so I'm not going to do anything about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So now let's.
Ooh, can I try to do reset here?
Yeah, go for it.
Okay. So we would just do this in the main machine here. We're not going to tie it to a state, so we would just do on like that. Correct? Mm-hmm. And then the event would be just reset. We would say, what is it? Is it actions that we would assign? Okay, so just like down here, we would actions assign. We would say elapsed 0, and we would also say target running.
Yeah. You could do that.
Is that correct?
I don't know. Let's try it out.
Well, so now we have to hook up our button. So we'll say lreset.add event listener, click, and then we'll just do a function there, and we'll say timer service.send reset. All right.
Okay, let's try that.
It seems to be working. Let's wait until it goes into the pause state and reset. And yeah, that's great.
Nice. So now we have a way to manipulate elapsed. Now we need a way to manipulate duration. So you know what? I'm going to have you do that too.
Oh.
So, you know, make an event. Let's manipulate duration. And remember, we can manipulate duration at any time. So
that's correct. So we would add that here. What would you call this kind of event? Would you just say duration?
Yeah, just call it duration.
Okay.
Sometimes I like to be specific and call it like duration.update or something like that.
Yeah. But
duration's fine. We know what it means.
Would we use assign directly here and then receive a value? I always forget how like the event value would pass through.
Oh yeah, so the way you do it, and I could demonstrate up here. So if you have blah, you could have a function that takes the current context and the events.
Okay.
And then you return a value based on that.
Gotcha. So. Okay, so we would say duration, context, comma value or event, and then we'd say return event.value or something like that. Event.current target.value.
Well, so right now this assumes that you're just sending the raw event, which will not have a type of duration. So since you're going to change it anyway, you have the opportunity to transform that event to whatever shape you want,
Right. So
which
down
we'll
here,
probably want to do.
we would say L duration, add event listener, change. We might need to change that to like on input or on update. I forget. There's some weirdness with range inputs where it like if you set it back to the original value, like it doesn't fire. So then we'll say timer service dot send duration, and then here we can pass through an object. Is that the format?
Sort of. So I'm going to just recommend that we do it like this,
Type
just because
duration.
it's going to change in version 5. It's not going to have that magical parameter thing that Vue developers love that. Personally, I love it. Unfortunately, it just messes with TypeScript typings and it makes people confused because they're like, there's a million ways to do this. So yeah, sorry.
Right. So in theory, that's correct, right? So we're sending through the target and the value there, or the type of the event, and then or do we send an event?
You don't want to grab e.target.value?
No, because we're referencing L duration. Like we want to keep it locked into that since we already have that reference, rather than doing like e.current target or whatever. Let's be more explicit there.
Yeah.
Okay, so
I remember someone on the last stream said that you could do value as number or something like that. I'm just thinking we probably do want to convert that to a number.
Yes. Let's try that. So if we drag, okay, it's not doing anything.
That's because we're setting it over here. And so, yeah, we're setting it in on-transition. That's probably a mistake.
Yeah.
We should just be listening to it. So now we could change it. But here's the problem. The duration is greater than the elapsed, but right now, and maybe we could show this in the HTML or something, right now we're in the paused state.
Yeah.
So how did we get to the paused state? Because we allowed elapsed to be greater than the duration. Yeah. So we want to say that we should always go to running when elapsed is less than the duration. And if you want to do that, feel free.
Okay. Well, I'm trying to let's do the showing the value in the document real quick, or in our little window setup. So let me go const L duration value equals document dot query selector duration value. This way we can see within the DOM. And so here in our timer service, we'll say L duration value dot text content equals, we'll reference state dot context dot duration s. Okay, yeah, that worked for there. And let's make sure when we drag it, it updates as well. Okay, yes, but it doesn't do that until you let go. That's what the change event. If we set that to input, then that should adjust as we go. Yeah, it's much more responsive there. Okay, so that works. So now you're saying in the pause state, we want it to transition back to running whenever duration is updated?
Yeah.
Okay, so state's paused, always, never elapsed. All right, so we would just check this here. Actually, yeah, we'd pretty much just do this, target running, condition, the context elapsed is less than duration. Right?
Seems right.
Okay, so let's hit 5 seconds here. Riveting stuff. And then change that, and seemed to work. And now if we go down below the existing below the elapsed time, it stops, which is good. That's what we want. That's what we're watching here with this always condition in running. But if we bump that up to 10 seconds, 11 seconds, 12, 15, that automatically starts working. So that's great.
Right.
Yeah.
Now we do have a, you know what? I sort of want to change the progress to a progress, if you know what I mean.
Yeah. I hear you on that. We'll see about styling that.
Yeah, ID equals progress. So I'm going to change that, which is probably going to cause some. Whoa, that is. I've never seen a progress bar do that. But,
yeah, I think that's relatively new. Like it's kind of like the default state of it or something when it doesn't have like a value.
Wow.
Yeah. Very.
All right. So where's our progress? Are we? Yeah. So we have L progress. So what I want to do is progress has a max, and so we could say L progress dot set attributes. I guess we have to do that because we're not in React land or anything like that. And the max of this is going to be the duration. So state.context.duration, if I can spell. I cannot spell. And then we have a value. So L progress dot value. I think we could just set value directly.
Sorry, where are you?
Context dot elapsed.
Okay, down here. Yeah. We also need to. Okay, you're setting the attribute max. Okay, to duration there. Okay, that seems to work just fine.
It's a bit trippy when you change the duration.
I know. I like that. I like that little reverse slider effect. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, it's pretty fun. And so just double checking, you're setting the min to 0, max to 30. I wonder why, or at least on my computer, when you drag the duration all the way to the left, it doesn't go all the way to the left.
Yeah.
I guess that's just a thing. It's a weird thing.
0.1. Yeah, I'm not sure why that is.
I mean, it doesn't matter.
I mean, all the way, yeah, all the way to 0 is the same kind of thing. It's, I don't know if that's just part of it.
All right, I just gave it some defaults over there. So we have a progress, we have a duration, really nice styling over there. So yeah, we have all the logic here, but there is this one awkward part. And it's the fact that we have the set interval, and this set interval is running constantly, which, obviously we don't want. So how do we get the set interval inside the actual machine? So this is where we get into like a little bit more advanced XState, and I could just show you how that works. And there's actually not too much code to it. It's just advanced, or not advanced. I'd call it more intermediate, even though all of XState feels advanced. But anyway, so the idea is that we want to say in the running state, we want to invoke that interval. So we want that interval to go only when we're in the running state. And so the way we could do that is with an invoke. So invoke is going to take a source, which is like, all right, tell me how to actually create this invocation. And so in this case, we're going to, and this is going to look funny, and I apologize for that, but we're going to invoke a timer. So this takes context and event. And so we're going to invoke a callback. Now, callbacks are probably the easiest or second easiest thing that you can invoke. You could also invoke promises and stuff like that. But this callback, it takes two things. It takes a way for you to send back an event, and it takes a way for you to receive an event. We're not receiving any events, so we're just going to use that send back, and then all the magic happens in here. So this is also going to feel a lot like use effect. So we could say const I for interval equals set interval, and we're going to send back a tick event. So now you see we're moving that set interval stuff inside. Oh, wow. It went
Yeah,
super
I
fast.
need to comment out the set interval down here.
And so I'm doing a tenth of a second. I'm going to actually pull it in from the context. So context.interval. So if we change the interval, we could actually affect how smoothly that progress goes. And so the thing that you return is a cleanup function. So you could clear that interval. And that's all there is to it. So what's great about this is that this invoke is only going to run while we're in the running state. So once we transition to paused, this clear interval is going to be called, and I could say console.log clearing interval just to prove it to you. And so when we're in the pause state, this interval timer is not going to be running. So
that seems to be correct.
Yeah, console.log.
Okay, so when you enter the running state, this invoke it is called.
Yeah.
And what exactly does source stand for? I didn't quite catch that.
The source is basically how we create the thing to invoke. So we're invoking this callback. Just think of it as man, what's an easy way to describe it? You could invoke things like promises. And so you could say, okay, this source is going to be a function that returns a promise. In that promise, I might be fetching some data and then I get it back, and that gets sent back to me as an event. In this case, we're using a callback because we want to send back lots of events. And so basically just think of this as, how do I create the use effect? So if you're coming from React's land, this is basically like use effect right over here. And I could give this an idea of timer, which makes it a little bit easier to visualize if you want to do that. But yeah, that's what that means. And you'll also notice that in XState, most of the things that you could do take the same 2 arguments at least, the context and the event. And so that makes it easy to remember like what you could do, what you could pull from.
Right.
Hopefully. So let me get rid of, you already, or someone got rid of that set interval.
Yeah.
And so now all of our logic is self-contained inside of this timer. And I believe that we fill all the guidelines.
Yeah. Let's look back over it. We've got a gauge for the elapsed time, a label which shows the elapsed time as a numerical value, a slider, which the duration of the timer can be adjusted while it's running, and a reset button. Adjusting the slider must immediately reflect on the duration, and not only when S is released. Okay, so we updated that to the input event, so that's correct. Follows that while moving S, the filled amount of G will usually change immediately. When the elapsed time is greater than the duration, the timer stops and G will be full. If thereafter the duration is increased so that the duration is greater than the elapsed time, the timer restarts to tick until it's again. Clicking reset will reset E to 0. That all seems accurate based on our state machine logic. So on reset, we set the elapsed time to 0. Duration, if we send that through, then it sets that duration value. In the context, our states, our running state, whenever we enter it, we're starting this interval, which ticks and updates the time. Always, we're checking if the elapsed time is greater than the duration. If so, we go to the paused. On the tick event, we are updating the elapsed time. Converting that to a number is all that's happening there. And then in the pause state, if we detect that the duration has updated to be longer than the elapsed time, we go back to the running state. So, yeah, that all tracks with the logic. Have you seen any of this about the accent color in
Oh yeah.
Chrome
So
lately?
I did. How do you change that again? I think it's just a I don't know, pseudo property or
Yeah,
property.
so this is something, it might be behind a um it might be behind a flag, so I don't know if it's usable yet. Let's see.
Let me
So this
double
is kind of
check.
what's happening. So if we said just something like input, let's see,
All right, so it's
input
enabled by default.
accent color red.
And yeah, it is
fun.
accent dash color.
Accent dash color. So we could say progress input accent color. All right, great. And we have our var pink. I think we also have a wow, that's interesting. I think we have a blue variable. Let me see. No, we just have tan. There is a blue that we can use. Grab that value quick. And we'll add that in our main template there. And then this should refresh and use that value. Well, that does, okay, there we go. It's not perfect, but I think there's more controls to it than just accent color. Oops, sorry, covered your face. Let's see. Let's look at accent color. Auto or a color. Yeah, maybe that's all there is right now, but it feels like there's more ways to like adjust just you know, like it's obviously setting the background color here, so that's something that happens, but we can at least get it to blend into our UI a little bit more with that, which is cool.
I don't know what I'm doing. Just because I haven't done this in a while. To transform the none sense. It's just a random animation. So when the progress, well, when it's paused, it sort of like jumps.
Yeah, I like it. Yeah, that's great.
Just so we have some sort of visual indication.
Yeah.
Oh, wait, why did I make it 5 seconds? Very slow jump, like we're on the moon. Oh, cool. So it sort of like jumps out at you whenever it reaches the paused state. And so that's how you could integrate states into your animations pretty easily. We've done this on so many different episodes using the data state property, but now it's just pretty straightforward. In on transition, just set the state to the state.value.
Yes, I like that. Yeah, and I did some little cursors there. I guess that works. Yeah, that's awesome. Okay, so let's look real quick at where you set the state. Okay, so just lapp dataset state equals state.value. So that's just the current state here, like running or paused. So that's great. And then if we update it, works perfectly. Oh, man, this is great. I like it.
Mm-hmm.
All right. I mean, that's pretty much it. Is there anything to kind of summarize from this one? I think.
A couple of things. So at least in XState, we have the always transitions, and then we have invoke. And yeah, that's pretty much it.
Okay, so let's just talk about always and invoke. XState, always XState. Invoke. All right. So if you're watching the full video, stay with us. We're doing some summaries. It's going to be great. You'll benefit from it. But just hang with us. And yeah, let's do those real quick. Hola, amigos, and welcome to Keyframers. I'm Stephen Shaw.
And I'm David Khourshid.
Let's take a quick look at a technique from this 7 GUIs task challenge where we built a timer using XState and some vanilla JavaScript. So, David, can you walk us through what's happening with always? What does always mean in a state machine?
Yeah, if you watch the previous videos on how we used XState with the 7 GUIs tasks, you'll notice something new in this episode, and that's the use of always. And so always is just, you could think of it as an invisible transition that always gets called. And so, or you could also think of it as a null event. So basically, when we're in the running states, every single time a transition happens, like the elapsed increases or the duration increases, or just anything happens in the state machine, we're going to be checking always this always transition. And so we want to take this transition if this condition is met. So we're basically saying over here, when the elapsed value is greater than or equal to the duration, we always want to go to the paused state. And so we don't have to have any sort of extra events for that. It basically is like an if statement that just always happens for every single one of your transitions. Right. And so we're doing that again in the paused state. So again, instead of listening to specific events, when anything happens, no matter what, we always want to go to the running state whenever elapsed is less than the duration.
All right. So always is just kind of an indicator, like anytime the state machine is updated, like there's an event sent through or something like that, then this always kind of event is going to trigger and check the conditions and all that.
Exactly.
Cool. Well, that's a great way to, ensure that you're going to go to the right state once something has happened. So that's helpful tip. All right, David, can you walk us through in our state machine here? We've got this new little invoke deal. What's up with this? What is XState doing here?
Sure. So early on in the episode, we were talking about how we needed a set interval to actually send tick events to the machine. Now, that was being managed outside of XState. And one small problem with that is that the interval, this send event or tick event, was always being sent. There was basically no way to stop the interval. And so we had logic in two places. We had the logic of the machine, and we had the logic of the set interval. So to change that, we need to put this inside of XState somehow. And that's where Invoke comes in. So with Invoke, you have a function that creates some sort of thing to invoke. And in this example, we're invoking what's called an invoked callback. And so this callback, it gives you a send back argument, and that's just a way of sending back events to the machine. And so we could set up our interval here, and we could also return a cleanup function. And so this cleanup function will clear the interval, and also this invoke, this is an important part about state charts, this invoke will only run for the duration of the states in which it's invoked. So if we switch states and go from running to paused, that cleanup function is going to be called. And then we're going to invoke it again once we go back to the running state.
Yeah. And so that send back function is kind of there because at this point in like setting up the state machine logic, like in create machine, we don't have like a reference to the machine or the service that's running it yet. So by doing all the like this nesting of the callbacks and everything, you're able to then get that instance and send an event through to that instance. Is that, am I understanding that correctly?
Yep,
Okay.
that's exactly correct.
Right. So yeah, a little bit like a use effect in React, but a good way to kind of move logic back into the state machine in a more abstracted way, so that you're not having to duplicate that in multiple places, which is great. I dig it. All right, David. Will you hit the outro for us? I'm happy with how this one's ended up.
Yeah, sure thing. So you can watch the full process of creating this this GUI live. Live where? Sorry, let me start that over. You can watch the full process of creating this GUI user interface for a deeper dive into each technique on the full live stream links below. Leave a comment if you have any questions. And this also is technically an animation. We threw that in there.
Yeah, it's very, very static animation, but animation nonetheless. Our show is supported by our sponsors. We've got CodePen at codepen.io, CSS Tricks at css-tricks.com, Stately at stately.ai, and viewers like you. You can pledge at patreon.com/keyframers and subscribe to our channel for more great content. We've got all those links for you below. That's all for today. Thank you all so much for watching. Adios, amigos.
Adios.